Thank you for joining us for this episode of Walking in the Wilderness Leadership Podcast. Today, we're privileged and honored to be joined by Dr. Lawrence Scott. Dr. Scott is a revered leader, educator, and mentor to many, but that wasn't always the case. Get ready for an exciting journey as he shares about his walk through this wilderness we call life and how he went from the hood to the hallways of higher education. Welcome back to our listeners, and welcome to all of our new listeners to Walking in the Wilderness.
Yep.
This is our platform where we try to encourage our listeners and others on their current walk in the wilderness. Today, we are privileged and honored to have Dr. Lawrence Scott in the house. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much, man.
Glad to be here, John. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
It's good to see, this platform and amplifying the voices of those who are trying to do it the right way.
Yeah, I appreciate
walking
that.
in the wilderness.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and you definitely have a walk that we want to get to.
Okay.
I feel like I know your story pretty well, and I know there's a lot of our listeners that know your story pretty well. But for those that don't know who Lawrence Scott is, give us a little bit of backdrop on who you are, not only professionally but personally.
Okay.
Let us know. I mean, where do you come from? Are you from here in in our local area? Did you migrate here? Tell for those who never met you.
Right.
Let's hear a 5-10 minutes of who Lawrence Scott is.
Well, to start again, thank you for this opportunity. Again, to amplify the voices of those who are again trying to do it. We might be taking a circuitous route, but we're trying to get there. Trying to make an impact, destination impact. In short, I'm from here, from San Antonio, born and raised, East Side. I joke around. I say not today's East Side with the $300,000 homes and the AT&T Center for the Spurs or the coffee shops.
Right.
The gentrified East Side. No, I'm talking about when DJ Quick said just like Compton, that East Side. There's a lot of drug dealing and just dilapidated buildings and just a lot of hopelessness.
Yeah.
And I tell people, man, I went from, hopelessness and homelessness to the hallways of higher education, from the barrio to the boardroom. And so essentially that's it, man. I grew up, there was always something in me that wanted more. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when I was, there was a time where my dad was selling drugs out of the home and I was kind of helping him out. And that's kind of how I learned how to be, to adequately adapt to any social situation. Because when you're dealing with drug addicts, from people at the hospital that he worked at to people on the street, you know what I mean? Different incomes, different races or whatever, but you had to adequately adapt. And I think that unparalleled, preparedness that I got helped me and catapulted me in a way to be able to want to give back more. Not necessarily make more, but want to give back more. And then also, it allowed me to reach a broader audience because, I'm able to navigate. Like I said, I can navigate the body or the boardroom.
Right.
And so, so that's the way I grew up. And I moved to North Carolina in my high school years, and lived with my mom, single parent home, lived with my mom. She worked 2 jobs just to, put food on the table. I was latchkey because she was working 2 jobs and trying to go to school. And so, me, I gravitated to the local drug dealers in the neighborhood.
Right.
And that's kind of, but I was counterbalancing that. I went to the school called Victory Christian Center, where it was, it was pretty much a leadership training school with a Christian slant.
Okay.
And so that really helped me. And I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, Pastor Robin Gould, who we just lost. He just passed away about 2 years ago. But it really helped me see that, again, it's not about the money,
right,
but it's about the mission. It's not about the purse, but it's about the purpose. And it just crystallized the idea that you can make an indelible impact, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then just don't make the impact for you, right? Make the impact for the community, but ultimately the kingdom, when I became a Christian there. And so that was pretty much my upbringing. I decided to go, I was studying to be an attorney. I had a lot of friends, a lot of homies are like, oh man, my boy L, he's gonna be an attorney. He's gonna get us out. He's gonna free us out. He's gonna help us out. We can, kind of like when Obama won, people think, oh, we can just smoke weed and walk around and break all kind of laws. It's not how it goes, man. It's not how it goes. So I was studying to be an attorney. This was my junior year at St. Mary's University.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be a politician. That was my dream. I wanted to be a politician. Yeah.
Where do you think you got that from? Like, where'd that come from?
I don't know. I just had an ability to speak. I remember I never, people get nervous speaking in front of people. I was at my high school. I was student government president, so I was always addressing the student body. I did the morning announcements at school. I had a radio station in high school. I was a DJ.
Really?
Yeah, I had a radio station in high school. So I was always in front of people, man. I used to break dance and then I used to rap. Some of our friends, Christian. I used to be a Christian rapper, so I was always in front of crowds. Right. So I said, well, man, if I can do this and I'm not nervous about it, then obviously God gave me this gift to use it, to benefit the world, to give back to the world. And so I thought speaking was the way. So of course, being an attorney, which we know, we know a lot of attorneys, you're not always in the courtroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then also, and then just giving speeches. Which I wanted to do because I was, it was a gift that I was able to hone over the years.
Sure.
But the funny thing is that I remember distinctively, I had to give a speech. It was about, what was it about? Like women's rights or something. It was something about women, like women empowerment. Okay. And it was a competition.
Sure.
And I'll never forget. It was me and a young lady named, she's Dr. Kanasha Gleaton now. But me and Kanasha, we were the finalists.
Oh, wow.
And but we made it, it was about, 20.
Both talking about women power or empowerment or something.
Yeah. But they had to decide who was going to go and who was going to get elevated to represent all of Charlotte. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, all of Charlotte. And I had it in the bag. Like I was, man, I practiced my speech. I memorized it. I was practicing in the mirror. Right. And at that time I was really like, I was doing mock trials. So I was always developing my speaking ability. Sure. And so midway through the speech, I froze. Wow. I did a B rabbit off of 8 Mile. I froze. And she won. And again, it's funny because I had to go back in 2012 to do, 2012, our graduation. Mm-hmm. It's awesome when you go back to your alma mater and do the graduation. Yeah, sure. And then she just went back, I think in 2019, and she was like, man, you knocked it out the park, and I had big shoes to fill. I was like, but you won that original speech in high school. I never forgot that. Because that was the only time I remember I froze. And I think it was during that time I had to work on extemporaneously speaking. Okay. Get your bullet points. Right. Your ideas and just organize them in a general fashion. Sure. Be clear where you want to, this is the destination, this is when you arrive. Right. And then sometimes you just got to do it extemporaneously. Sure. And so, now, I do the news a lot, and the news is all sound bites. It's all, you got to say.
You may have 30 seconds.
Yeah, you got 30 seconds. Tell us what critical race theory is in 30 seconons. Well, there's 16-week courses.
And still don't hit it all.
Still don't hit it all. Yeah. And so I had to learn how to speak in sound bites. And so that's what I'm doing now. Working, catapulting now. I teach full-time in the administration program, Texas A&M San Antonio. Right. Developing the next cadre of principals, pretty much. Ours is the principal prep and superintendency prep program. And then of course, I run a nonprofit called Community for Life Foundation. Yeah. We, average about $50,000 in scholarships. And you're very familiar with that organization. You've been one of our sponsors, so thank you for that. Oh, no, one of our major sponsors, platinum level sponsors. And then and that necessitates a lot of preparation, a lot of leadership, a lot of speaking, a lot of coaxing. Before I was a professor, I was 17 years in San Antonio ISD, teacher, guidance counselor, coach. Went central office to write curricula. Came back as an administrator. And again, at its height, 134 employees, learning how to, but I'm 31. I'm trying to manage, we talk about the wilderness. Yeah, trying to manage, that work-life balance, which I didn't. I didn't do well. I actually, lost my relationship in the process. I would say that was probably the incipient stages of of losing my marriage because I didn't have that balance.
Sure.
I mean, there's some other things obviously
sure.
that precipitated the divorce, but I think a lot of people ask me, Doc, what's one thing in retrospect you would have changed? And I would have said, and I tell my future principals, I said, make sure you have a great work-life balance because your work. What was happening is my work was giving me life, and my home was draining me.
Oh,
and
wow.
It should be both should give you
deep.
life, but you should get a little bit drained and be able to recharge your battery at home.
Yeah,
and I think that's what. But again, when you don't invest in the front end, you don't front load and invest in the people that you're in partnership with.
Sure.
Yeah, you're gonna get the response that you get when you're never home, or when you're home, you're not focused on them. You're focused on whatever. I tell people being a principal is like running a small city. You know what I mean? You're focusing on all the moving parts and what do you have to do and who do you have to delegate to throughout the day. And
no, it's definitely a big role. I know. Now being an adult, I kind of have a better appreciation, understanding, right, of what some of our administrators have to deal with. Obviously, growing up, you have no idea what these administrators are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, especially. And then on top of that, in today's context, where you're talking about, depression, school shootings, suicide,
teacher retention,
all of those things, right?
The budget crunches, and I've been told, I remember one superintendent said, just do more with less. That's what we have to do. And so, again, all that's tough. But again, I was able to see early and able to find leaders. So if there's, I tell people different things. You definitely find the archetype of what you want to be like. So I saw like a Dr. Rob Milton Fields, or I saw Pastor Keith Graham.
Sure.
I saw a Mona Lopez, or even Marisa Pettis, who's our State Board of Education member. I saw their leadership styles, and they have different leadership styles.
Yep.
Like Pastor Keith Graham is more transformative. Dr. Rob Fields is more situational leadership. Hershey and Blanchard, situational leadership. We can get into these, these theories.
No, that's good. Yeah.
The sources of power of French and Raven, like Bryson Graham, he's more of a French and Raven source of power. And I would say he's more referent. I got to see him in action in, the NBA.
Sure.
He's New Orleans Pelicans. And I got to,
So what about yourself? When you look at all those different individuals, right? How have they helped you? We can transition a little bit here.
Okay.
We'll pivot a little bit because you brought up some really good points. But, how have these individuals helped you sort of define leadership and come up with your own philosophy? I mean, are there any sort of tenets that you like to follow as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, definitely Robert Greenleaf, right? Dr. Greenleaf, servant leadership. I love Sir Giovanni. Sir Giovanni's good. The moral leadership. But I would say a hybrid of many of them. I would take parts, right? So like Pastor Keith Graham, he was more of the, he was a servant leader, but, he wasn't very talkative, right? Like he's not a talkative person, but he's more of the distributed leadership, like participatory distributed leadership, where he would delegate well. Right. But in order to delegate, he would have to build capacity in the varying departments. Okay. And so I learned that. So when I had my own teachers, I was building capacity. One of my favorite teachers, Miss Caldwell, Clarice Caldwell, she was just that teacher that would stay late, come in early, that teacher that would build relationships with the kids, the community, everything. And so I knew, okay, at the time she was an aide. She was a teacher's aide. But I was like, we got to build capacity in her. So we put her in a situation where she was teaching a class as a teacher's aide. When one of the teachers got pregnant and was on maternity leave, she rocked it, and her scores was crazy. Like, she was beating the teachers that were already certified and everything. Wow. And again, she was doing that there was a certified teacher there, or, temporary teacher, whatever. Sure. But she was her aide. Yeah. And so she ended up getting her degree, ended up getting her certification, and now I was able to hire her at the school when my first year as administrator. I was able to hire her at Davis, the school, local school here in San Antonio. And the funny thing is, she's still there. I actually part-time there a couple of days a week, part-time there as an assistant principal, just to kind of keep, administrative assistant, just to kind of keep conversing of what's going on, to help my principal students, prep students. And she's still there and rocking it still. That's all awesome. These years. Yeah. And that's another thing too I learned in that is you want to make sure you hire the right people. Yeah, right. Get the right team, right? Yeah, definitely. And so you want to get people. You have to see, because you don't want to have high turnover means you got to keep training and cross training, and that's time and resources on training and onboarding and all that. You don't want to spend time on that. So if you hire the right people,
impacts team dynamics. And,
well, you're trying to build a culture and climate, right? Of success, and in the context of schools, academic success. Well, you can't do that if you're constantly having to onboard and train and retrain people. Right. So you want to learn how to attract, train, and retrain, highly effective teachers. Okay. And so Ms. Caldwell was definitely that. And the cool part about it is once you built that capacity and you have, like Pastor Keith was, distributed leadership, they now do the trainings. Right. They now do the mentorship of the new teachers. Right. Another situational leadership is one of the ones I love as well. And there's different people that represent that. But situational leadership, I don't know if are you familiar with situational leadership? It's Hershey and Blanchard. Your superstar workers. Yeah. People that are going to shine. Right. They understand the mission of the organization, and they want to push it forward. Right. And then if they like the wheel and the scale, those are the ones you say UPS is hiring, got good benefits, wrong seat, wrong bus, you know what I mean? And so, and then you get those. I've hired some duds. I think my first year, our team, we had to get rid of like about 80% of our teachers.
80%.
We cleaned house, man.
Wow.
First year, unfortunately. And a lot of that was due to, that particular school became a dumping ground and teachers just,
that's unfortunate.
You don't want to be there.
Now you're impacting the next generation.
Yeah, a lot of teachers didn't want to be there. I mean, it's a tough school. It's a tough assignment. And that's another thing, too, understanding your assignment. Sure. Because everybody ain't meant to, get, at the most, highly sought after school or whatever. Some teachers like myself, some educators were called to communities of color or communities with that were high need, low SES. And so if you're doing that, just know you're going to have to do the extra. Right. You have to go to quinceañeras, the bar mitzvahs, the weddings and the funerals, the barbecues and the cookouts and the funerals. You got to do the extra. You got to go to basketball games. You got to build relationship with everybody in the family and the community. Right. And that's the only way you're going to be effective. Yeah. And so, those are some of my favorite theories that I found that I can, transformative versus transactional. Again, we know people who are very transformative where whatever they do, it's going to transform into something positive. And it ain't just, you do for me, I do for you. Right. Because that's short-lived. Yeah. That's short-lived.
Talk to me a little bit about that's because that's great insight into sort of your, Monday through Friday, day-to-day, professional, what you've been trained in, right? Yeah. But talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned the Community for Life Foundation and sort of being the executive director for a nonprofit, which is not, that's nothing to laugh at. It's very
fundraising is
especially. Well, I was about to say,
COVID,
right? Oh man. Well, especially like you alluded to when you consider, especially a nonprofit that is run over 20 years, right? Yeah. Where every cent has gone back into the actual mission. Yeah. I remember meeting with someone early on and asking for some advice about nonprofits. And when I shared some of the statistics and the insight and perspective about the Community for Life, this individual who sat on a number of boards, not only across the city, but at a national level said, I know of no nonprofit that has run for over 20 years on giving back where every cent goes back. There's usually a ratio. Right. 70 cents to the dollar, 80 cents to the dollar.
We do have overhead. Right. We have people that help us with the overhead and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about leading that type of organization a little bit and what that's got to be like, because I imagine as you said and alluded to, not only the fundraising aspect, but since you don't have paid staff.
We don't have paid staff, yeah. It's
all
volunteer.
So just talk to me a little bit about that type of leadership and leading that organization.
I've been blessed, man. I inherited the person that was before me. Tavy Brooks, did a great job at, because I'm not good at like the nuances, like developing the bylaws and the Constitution, developing the board, developing all the 501c3.
Yeah, sort of the
administrative stuff. Yeah. So she did a lot of the infrastructure that I was able to inherit. A lot of the great infrastructure she had. There was already a board, and I was familiar with people on the board already. Yeah. And I remember the chairman, when he came to me, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, I want you to, be a part of the Community for Life." I'm thinking he wants me to be on the board. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be on the board. I'll help out. I might be, the assistant to the education director." Right. And he's like, "No, I want you to run it. I want you to run the organization." And it took me back, But the thing is that when I was homeless, those are the people that took me in, the founders of the Community for Life Foundation. Those are the ones that took me in when I was homeless. When I needed to go to college, it was the Community for Life Foundation that gave me the money to go to college. So I came in with an adoration and respect for the organization already. Because, and I was, even in my little paltry little way, I was still giving $35 here, $25 here, just kind of, hey, show up to Give Thanks and help out. Right. Give Thanks is an initiative in which you feed about 1,200 people during Thanksgiving time. So, I was showing up and helping out in my small little way. So I was already in adoration of the organization. Now to take over, when I started, we didn't have a website. I mean, I remember I approached Brandon Graham, who we both know, and he's my best friend. He's also my manager. But I said, man, this organization, we don't have a website, and so that's the first thing we did. 21st century. Yeah, no website. Yeah. This is 2011 when I took over, and we didn't have a website, man. And let me tell you, I remember we used to, do those little promo packs and media advisories and kind of say, hey, this is what we're doing. And God has blessed us so much, man, where we just have to make a phone call to any news station, and they'll be like, where do you want us to be? We'll be there. I mean, we're at that level where, I have a friend who's a director at one of those local news stations. They get 500 a day. And they have to sift through which one that we're going to pay attention to. Sure. We can call literally the directors and just say, hey, we got this going on. Can you cover it? We'll be there, sir. Wow. That kind of immense impact. So that's the thing is, for me, I saw not just the potential, but I was a recipient of the scholarship. Right. So leading it, to me, we have a great board. Everybody on there wants to be there. It's volunteer. Sure. We're not paid. But I don't tax the people either. Like I know everyone has families now. If you ask my education director, my finance director, they may tell you differently, because I call them I call and text and have requests at odd times, and have short deadlines. So they might get a little bit more than everybody else, but we have quarterly meetings. So again, I'm very cognizant of everyone has families. And again, remember what I failed at when I was a leader over, a school situation, is work-life balance. Right. So I make sure I'm not going to bother you, during your family time or church time or whatever. I'm not going to bother you within reason. Sure. And so I think the biggest thing, like the education director, Lamonde Fields, and the finance director, Tanya Johnson, who will be both retiring. I don't know if you knew that, but they're both retiring this year. Okay. They've done 20 years. Wow. So you know what I mean? Like, people, we believe in the organization. Yeah. Like, my job. There's buy-in. Sure. So Dr. Cotter, the theory of change, change theory, he talks about the first thing you got to do is build a sense of urgency. Right. But the second and third thing, he's like, build the buy-in, communicate the buy-in. And for me, I remember my first few meetings, I showed them my little picture when I was a little thug and trying to sell drugs. And I said, I went from here to now running the organization. Wow. How many more Dr. Lawrence Scotts are going to be, in this group that we're given to? Like, that's why it's so important, because this is life or death. Right. I've had friends murdered. I had my boy Shamari Lewis murdered in 2018. He was the last, we had a crew of us. A lot of them went to jail, and then a few of them got murdered. He was the last one. He just got murdered at a party. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is life or death for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? This ain't just something where, I'm trying to be on TV. I mean, we're on TV and stuff, but, or make money. Obviously I'm not, but this is, I can't sleep knowing that there's students out there like me that just need an extra push. They need just a little extra financial help to pursue their dreams. And man, we have over 350 recipients, doctors, lawyers, teachers, service men and women.
Sure.
We have Bryson Graham, assistant GM, New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
We had an NFL coach, a Disney director, countless professors,
Sure.
Business people, entrepreneurs. So you had so many people come out of this doing exceedingly well.
Right.
They were going to make it,
right,
but they just needed that extra push. And that's what we're not there to supplant, but we're there to supplement what's already happening for your, for your mission.
You mentioned something, man, that I kind of want to touch on a little bit.
Okay.
You touched on sort of a little bit about the environment you grew up in, drugs, and definitely don't want to go down that rabbit hole if you're not comfortable. But
what's the statute of limitations, man? 15 years.
What I do want to touch on is you have this sort of desire. You mentioned this innate feeling inside to want better, to pursue more, right? I heard you in your passion talk about pursuing education, and I know you're very passionate about your purpose in life, but where do you think that came from? How did you end up, right? Talk to us a little bit about going from the hood to the hallways of higher education, or the body to the boardroom, right? We're missing that little piece in between there, right? Like, what drove you? Is it someone you met? Is it something you saw?
Absolutely.
I also unfortunately have friends who, ended up in jail.
Yeah.
I have friends that I have lost in a variety of ways. And I always ask also, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing sometimes when you think about where we're at today.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It's crazy.
So what do you think, what was that innate drive you had inside to pursue more, and again, not to criticize or condemn anyone else or anyone else's story, right? But Lawrence Scott, to walk in the wilderness, right? As you're walking through this wilderness of life, right? What caused you to go left instead of right? Right. What caused you to say, I'm not jumping in that river. Right. I'm going this way.
Well, I don't want to equivocate here. So I made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
I think the biggest impetus for me was that I knew. So I saw archetypes of success. When I met my English teacher, he was my English teacher, my basketball coach, Mr. Bago. When I went to Charlotte, man, I saw this guy who was just like bigger than life. I think he was like 28. I'm like 17. Wow. 16, 17. And he was just bigger than life. He wrote books. He did speeches. He had a family, beautiful family. He was a godly man. He would pray. So I would ride with him. So my mom, she worked 2 jobs. So she couldn't pick me up from basketball practice. And he saw I was riding the bus. It took me 2 hours to get home. It was bad to do homework because basketball practice ended like 7. 2 hours to get home. It's 9 o'clock. I'm already tired, so I couldn't finish homework. Right. So he saw I was kind of struggling. So he blessed us with giving me a ride, sometimes in the morning to school, but then definitely during basketball practice, after basketball practice. And I would just watch him, man. I mean, I would just observe him, man. He was a real Christian. Sure. He introduced me to Christian rap. And he was just passionate, and just hearing how he spoke, how he related to his family, how he, was a community leader, things he wrote about. And again, he was English. So he was real big on real big on writing, like making sure you convey your thoughts in the writing.
Yeah,
and so
that's deep.
When I first became a teacher, man, I got to go back and see him in Charlotte my first year. And there's a picture I show every time I do a speech of me telling him like, hey, Mr. Baker, I write books like you. I do speeches like you. I'm teaching like you. I coach like you. I named my son Christian after your son, Christian. And then I told him, I said, I'm bald like you. You know what I mean?
I'm not your son.
No, really. Yeah, for real. Like, you see a picture, and we juxtapose it. Sure. It looks just, I literally look like him.
Sure.
And recently, we still keep in touch. And I recently, on Facebook, he had a little emoji of himself. Sure. Or whatever, not emoji, but what do you call him? Like the little avatar.
Like an avatar?
Avatar. Yeah. And I was like, well, since I already look like you, can I just borrow your avatar? I want to spend the laborious time creating one. I look like you. Shoot. So, but no, man. So he gave me an opportunity to see that you can do more and be better. and not just what I was seeing before I got to Charlotte, which was a lot of drug dealing and a lot of men shirking responsibilities,
right?
Not paying child support or not being actively involved in their kids' lives. My dad was involved. I mean, my dad, I want to clarify, my dad got hooked up on drugs real bad, man, crack. He was selling a little bit, but then he got hooked up on drugs. Yeah. And like I told somebody about 5 years ago, they tried to kill him.
Yeah, I remember you sharing
7 years ago. 7 years, they tried to kill him, man. Right. I didn't want to call Brandon. I actually would have called the cops. But I got in touch with our friend, mutual friend Maurice, and I sent him the address, said, look, if I don't come back, this is where I am. And I'm probably dead, you know what I mean? And so anyway, I had to pay money to get him, get him freed because he owed them money or something. Sure. And so that changed him. Like I said, now, and I just want to clarify, yes, he was addicted to drugs. Right. Yes, he did sell drugs. Yes, he was, quote unquote, at the time, a father in the wilderness. Yeah. He was a father in the wilderness, man. Right. But God now, like at its worst, me and my wife at the time, we were driving and, my wife at the time was like, hey, is that your dad on the side of the road? What are you talking about? We were driving just to, I guess look for wedding videos or whatever. Okay. And I was like, man, and so I pull over, man, it's my dad on the street, man. Wow. We lost the house. He lost the house I grew up in. Wow. They sold it for like $14,000 at the courthouse. Wow. Yeah, and that was hard because that was a house. That house was in our family for generations. My grandmother willed it to him, and then so it was supposed to be ours, and so he lost the house, and then but again, he was a man in the wilderness. Sure. Fast forward now, my best friend. Yeah. I mean, we talk every day. Great-grandfather. Oh, man, my kids don't even care about me anymore. They're like, when's Grandpa Lawrence coming over? And him and my daughter, they play music all the time. Yeah. And, he takes them, he used to pick them up and take them everywhere. Yeah. And, now, he's getting a little older. But he still comes over and helps out. And they really... It's like life replaying itself. Yeah. So you really get to see the splendor of him. Yes. I got to see the Ugg mug.
I was just talking to some, I kid you not, right before you came over, I was having a conversation with a mutual friend, and we were talking about the complexity of, the principle of honoring your father and mother when your father or mother you may feel don't deserve to be honored.
And everybody's just trying to work it out. Yeah. I mean, there is, but there really ain't no manual. Right. Nobody's really ready to have kids. Nobody's really ready to get married. Nobody's really ready to have their first job. Sure. Their first leadership experience. Yeah. Nobody's really ready. Yeah. But you just, you navigate. Yeah. You walk through the wilderness. Yeah. Don't walk alone. We'll talk about that. Don't isolate. But yeah.
What's you have such vast experience, not only in the practical sense, but also in the academic sense, right? And obviously, as I've shared with you privately, I just greatly appreciate what you do on a day-to-day basis because you are what every leader should strive to do, in my opinion, is, as you said, is to create new leaders, to replicate themselves.
Right, absolutely.
And I think what you've touched on is really, really key when you think about as children, we think about your path and your walk, the power of observation. Yeah. Yeah. At a young, in your formative years, you watch your dad, you spend time with your dad. And that was kind of when you moved to North Carolina, what you started to kind of enact those same activities. Right. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. But then once you got the right people or different, I don't want to say right, that's inappropriate. So I apologize. When you got different people in your circle and you started to sort of observe their behaviors and sort of mimic those behaviors, right? Absolutely. You went down this different path.
Absolutely.
Right. And so when we think about whether it's leadership in any form or fashion, right? Your subordinates, right? If you're a leader of leaders, or even just to have a single team, even if you're just a father, right?
Or still leadership,
right? Yeah. And so
whatever you do,
the power of observation is deep.
Let me tell you something. Whatever you do, and it's kind of going into Maxwell's 360-degree leader, where you're supposed to affect everybody 360 degrees. Like you should be impacting those above you, those that are lateral, and then those below you.
Sure.
And so I've always found that I've built relationship and I've tried to be impacted by and to impact everybody around me. Those below me, I want to listen. What's going on?
Yeah.
Keep your head, keep your head, so it's funny, even now, as I part-time, I'll go and I'll talk to the custodians and I'll help them clean up the cafeteria and stuff. And I'm, they looking at me like, man, you're one of the leaders here. Why are you cleaning up the cafeteria? But I want to understand the ethos of what they do. You know what I mean? The spirit of what you do. And then even if it's not at whatever at a certain level, at least model it.
Yeah.
Right? Model it. Right. And then that's a part of that servant leadership part, right? That, I want students to be able to see that, hey, I know you see me as somebody who, may be an administrator and whatever, but I'm also somebody that I'm here for the community. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And that togetherness. So I think the whole part of the observational learning, that's a little bit of Albert Bandura's social learning theory, would be to make sure that whoever you're following they can see the outcome. They can see, if you can see it, you can be it. They can see if I follow this archetype of success, I too can be a professor. I too can be a nonprofit executive. I too can be somebody who can raise money and be on TV and do national interviews. I too can be that.
Right.
Because he's from the same neighborhood. I'm on the east side. He's from the same neighborhood we're from.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Right.
But I tell him, if you want to be like me, look for Mr. Bago.
Right.
Look for Pastor Keith Graham. You can't do this alone.
Right.
You can't navigate alone. You gotta find today somebody who can, either have already cleared the pathway for you or can walk along with you in that wilderness and get, help you clear the pathway together. And that's what Brandon does, my friend Brandon.
Yeah.
He kind of helps me clear the pathway together.
Sure.
As we look at other archetypes who've cleared the pathway for us.
And do you think within that, education has helped you sort of equalize the playing field?
Absolutely. Education gave me the tools to, again, while I was at St. Mary's, I also did a study abroad program.
Right.
I'm telling you, when you go overseas, it was in London, England, but I got to travel all over the world. Like I said, the Africa, I did some stuff in Africa, all over, Scotland, France, Germany, Spain, you name it, we're doing it, right? You get a global perspective.
Sure.
And when you get that global perspective, that's when it's not just about my small community. Right. I'm a citizen of the world. Like the goals, the dreams, the mission, the vision, the passion, everything has to be transmuted into the impact, the global impact, the impact over the world. Right. And again, that's not everybody's mission. Right. But God gave me a clear mandate that I'm going to change the world. One for people like me that grew up like me. That's my my tagline or my mission, my mantra is I want to help those who grew up like me have an optimal opportunity for success, whether it be academically or whatever. Sure. For success. Well, God gave me that idea that for the people that grew up like me, that little small microcosm, they can have an archetype of success. But then also people who will never see anyone like me. Yeah. I've taught classes, man. I think I told you last time we conversed. I've taught classes with people who said, I'm the first Black person they ever met in real life, right here in Texas. Wow. In Texas, 2023. I said, wait, the first Black professor? Right. They said, no, sir, doctor, you're the first Black person I ever met in real life. Wow. And that, to me, was like, okay, we got work to do. Because if they're watching TV and what they see from our rappers and whatever is the only archetype of a Black person, and again, just to clarify, I'm not moved by my first allegiance, again, is my Christianity and who I am as a godly man. So that propels me again to a bigger and broader mission. Yeah. And so I don't waste time. Like, people call me, hey, you want to meet and do this? And if you're not a part of the mission, I really don't have the time. Yeah. I really don't deep. Because I'm on borrowed time right now. Right. We talk about the COVID and everything. I'm on borrowed time. Right. And so with this time that God has given me, I'm going to use every second to make sure that any kid that grew up like me has a fighting chance for optimal success. A fighting chance. Deep.
Let's talk a little bit about that. That's great. Okay. That's a great transition. To put it lightly, the last 3 years have been definitely challenging, for those who may be watching or listening. 10 or 15 years from now, we are 3 years after the 2020 pandemic. And so, when you talk about COVID pandemic, we'll get into a little bit of your story because you had a really rough bout, with that, unfortunately. But, we thank God that you're still here with us, as you said.
Yeah.
And then you talk about, not that it was the first time ever, but I think definitely the first time in recent history that I can think of when we've had very divisive political elections, right?
Yeah.
You talk about the George Floyd murder and the subsequent sort of police incidents, rioting across the country, right? Just a really divisive time in our country that we haven't seen in a long time. And then, we talked a little bit about it, but just the mass shooting events that we've unfortunately encountered, many of them in educational arenas, How have you navigated the last 3 years, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, it's traumatic. I mean, just like a lot of other people, I think first and foremost, I was under the impression, that it's just going to be a shutdown and we'll be, we'll be all right. We'll be back to normal.
2 weeks.
And it was May 31st.
Okay.
I got really sick. I couldn't breathe. And so I checked in the hospital May 31st. I didn't get out till, I went to 4 different hospitals. I didn't get out until June 15th because June 16th is my birthday, me and my son's birthday. And so so essentially 16 days in the hospital. I had a blood clot in my lungs. I had pneumonia. I had kidney failure, which I've never had kidney failure. And then I had COVID, blood clot in my lungs, kidney failure, pneumonia. There was one more thing I had. A mild heart attack. I had mild heart attacks. They had to give me nitroglycerin. Yeah, and so it was traumatic because I have a picture where I'm in tubes everywhere, and it took me about 6 months to get my heart right because I had to go to a cardiologist every month. It was traumatic. I thought I was gonna die. I called my wife at the time, and I was just basically giving her the life insurance policy. They told me that you're having acute renal failure, your kidneys are failing. I remember because I kept throwing up. That's one of the reasons I went to the hospital. Could not stop throwing up. And then I called a mutual friend of ours, Pam Turner, and I just told her, I don't know why I just cannot stop throwing up. I'm talking 11 times, 12 times.
Wow.
Back to back. Not even eating nothing, just throwing up. Right. And she's like, yeah, you're dehydrated. I go in there and they're like, man, your kidneys are failing. And so what? And so, so they're basically saying, look, man, we might have to intubate you, and there's a 20% chance that you're going to survive if we put you under.
20%
chance. And so I was like, I can't make that decision by myself. So I called my wife at the time, and I was just telling her, but I don't think she understood. She was going through COVID and stuff. She didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
And so then I called a couple, friend of ours, and I was just, I was in a situation where, like, this could be it. And I had a friend that recently passed away. Billy. He passed away of COVID, and he had the same, like he would send messages to his wife to me. Ask Lawrence. Da 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 da. I had the same apparatus that he had. He died of the pneumonia part.
Wow.
But I had the same apparatus he had. Asked Lawrence, did he? And I was like, hey, just do the breathing exercise. And I'm telling him
Right.
But unfortunately, when he went in, it was already too late. His oxygen levels were already like low 80s.
Okay.
Mine dropped, and then I was able to get resuscitated and all that, get back up.
Right.
And I got plasma too. That helped out. I got plasma transfusion.
Yeah.
But essentially, it was serious, man. And so I had that. I battled with that. So I got, I had bills and stuff on that. My mom ended up having a stroke.
Yeah,
and then she coded twice.
Right.
And she lost her ability to walk. So then I had that. I take care of her full time. She moved with us because she was in California. She finally came home from the hospital after 2 weeks in a coma.
Right.
She gets to my brother's house, California. She's there a week, and then her house burns down, the California fire, the Dixie fire. And so I can't make this up. So so they're homeless. So I said, Mom, she's in a wheelchair. I said, Mom, come live with me.
Right.
So I'm her caregiver. And then I get a divorce. I went through a divorce, man. 17-year marriage, 18 known her 18 years. And again, I mean, there was a lot of other things that happened. But I think the biggest thing was it's just, divorce is tough because it's like a death of so many different things at the same time, right?
Right.
Like, your friends that you used to hang around with and,
Sure.
and the places you used to go, places that you used to feel comfortable, even going like to the church we went to, we sat in the same seats for, 16 years.
Right.
And so, that it really affected us. And it affected my leadership because I wasn't able to make cogent decisions because everything that was falling around me, my whole world was falling apart.
Yeah.
And I know you helped me out, and I thank you, man, helping me get my mom here and just really been there for me. But it was, if there was a wilderness, if there was a season to encapsulate what a wilderness is, it had to have been that, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, God, why didn't you just take me?
Right.
Because you could have just killed me, right?
Sure.
But no, I lived. But then, even though I'm living, I'm going through the most traumatic, man. My daughter, she was getting, sick and struggling with the whole divorce, and then, just my mom and it was overwhelming. And that was the only time I'll never forget, man, in my life that I thought, man, well, maybe I should end it all. Like, maybe this is too much. This is too much to bear, because I felt like, I'm already on borrowed time. What's the difference?
Yeah.
And so I lost friends. Like, I lost Billy. I lost, Dr. Carrie Lattimore, who you met. Used to be on our foundation board. But yeah, I lost a lot of good people, man. And I didn't know. You really don't know. And my natural bent is to go at it alone. My natural proclivity is to, like, I don't want to bother nobody with my stuff.
Sure.
Just go at it alone, pray about it, and suck it up and keep moving.
Right.
And I think this was the one I couldn't go alone.
Yeah.
I went to go get therapy. I got a therapist now, bless her heart.
Yeah.
She's amazing. I've been with her for several years. And then I got church. I got help at the church. And then I make sure I surrounded myself with the right people. I had one friend that would call me at 9 a.m. every day, and another friend that called me at 10. And if I didn't answer the phone, they'd come wherever I was, work, home, wherever I was, to come and check on me.
Right.
Those kind of, for 8 months.
Right.
And when you have those kind of friends, now look at it, and now 2-3 years, I'm on the other side of it.
Right.
I'm at peace, man.
Yeah.
Like I was telling somebody before, I was like, during that time, I was like, I can't believe the life I'm in. Like, I don't want this life. I can't handle this life. Lord, take this life from me. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then now I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is my life. This is crazy. This is my life.
Sure.
How did this happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm training Spurs, the Spurs staff, San Antonio Spurs staff, and doing speeches all over. And it's just, again,
two sides of the extreme, if you will. Two sides
of the extreme. Don't go it alone. Surround yourself with the right people that will encourage you, that will nourish you.
Right.
And then just understand that this too shall pass. This is temporary. You're going to get on the other side of this. Start thinking and journaling who you're going to be, what you want to be, what story you're going to tell, the testimony you're going to tell once you're on the other side of this wilderness. Because on the other side of wilderness, man, is like unimaginable peace.
Sure.
If I have to use biblical terms, land of milk and honey, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it's just amazing, amazing on the other side.
Yeah.
Just get to the other side. Crawl if you have to.
Say that again.
I said crawl if you have to get to the other side.
That's good.
If you're out, man, there's times, I'm telling you, it's one thing to go through a divorce. That takes people out.
Yep.
People have killed people over divorces and all that. That takes people out. But to go through a divorce, go through near-death experience, go through your mom, she died twice, all right? So when they call you, I'm sorry you lost her. Oh, no, we revived. Oh, no, you lost, going through that painful.
Yeah, that trauma, that emotion.
Trauma, like, I just lost my mama. Okay, she's still alive,
Wow.
And then I had to move 5 times because of the divorce. I had to move 5 times within a year. And there's one time I was, my son, he's like 12 and he's sleeping in my bed with me. Very uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Very uncomfortable.
And working still.
And working. Oh yeah, you still got to work. You still got to work. You got to provide food. And so again, the blessing was, and the blessing has always been, God has always given me a clear mandate. Just stay with me. Everything's going to be okay. The worst possible thing that can happen to you in the worldly sense was that you die, but then you're elevated and go to heaven. So really, there's nothing to worry about. So right now, John, I have no cares in the world. I I'm just at peace. I don't want anything extra. People give me, man, they've called me, man, we want you to run for Congress. We're going to do this. We want you to run for city council. We want you, hey, this new job, you're going to make this money. I don't want it. I don't care. I remember I wanted to be a politician.
Yeah.
They're asking me right now. I don't care about that, John.
Right.
I'm clear at the mandate God gave me. And because I'm walking in it, I can see, the ascension.
Sure. What I love about what you said is, which is really, really deep, and I hope that our listeners get it, is that you said when you get through the wilderness, on the other side of it is peace. You didn't say the other side of it is money.
Yeah.
On the other side of it's a new house or a new car.
Yeah.
You said it's peace.
Yeah.
What does that?
Wow.
What does that look like? What does it feel like for those who may never have felt that or experienced that? I mean, what is that? I mean, when you say, this undescribable peace or this, right? What does that look like?
It's kind of like what I was just saying. Like you don't want for anything. You know what I mean? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Like everything that Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you.
Right.
Let me tell you something, man. People chase money, right? And I tell people, I got that from Pastor Keith. Don't chase the money, chase the mission. People chase money, but imagine a life, and we've seen it with Pastor Keith and many others, where money doesn't even matter. So much so that the things you can buy with money, he's getting without the money. He's bypassed the money. Sure. That's insane. Yeah. Right? People have blessed him with a very expensive car.
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
The things that people are working for to get the money so they can buy the influence, the impact, the things.
Sure.
People are blessing people like that have that peace.
Sure.
And that's what I'm searching for. Not even about the money or the things.
Yeah.
But just that I'm content, man.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm
I like
all right.
what you said. I want for nothing.
I want for nothing. I don't
That's
want no
amazing.
more. People,
That's
tell you,
awesome.
I remember there was a time where I was like, man, we need to do more media. We need to, and I was like, and now I'm like, if it happens, it happens.
Sure.
Let me tell you something. I met with a donor, big time donor in the city. Big. And Fortune 500, I would say Fortune 10 in the city. Sure. Fortune 6 in the city.
Okay.
And I told him, I said, listen, sir, like, honestly, we the scholarships, we love, you all to become a partner, that'd be great. And he was like, yeah, no doubt. But then I told him, I said, but honestly, look, I was a former recipient, but honestly, look, listen, even if you don't donate $1 to us, I appreciate you bringing us out and everything, but we're going to be okay either way. Either way, we're going to be okay. Yeah. Like, and then I kind of joked around. I said, look, I don't get paid anyway, so whether I raise 100 or 50, the consequence, it don't matter. I'm passionate about it, but it don't move the needle for me either way. But then, that let me know, and that let him know, if it happens, great.
Right. I'm not going to compromise who I am. I'm not going to compromise my mission, my purpose.
But people do that all the time.
Check.
People do it all the time.
Yeah,
John.
Unfortunately.
All the time. And I think
sad.
leadership is a part of that where, this is kind of, Jesus Christ was one of the best leaders. He was sacrificial. Yeah. You know what I mean? He was sacrificial. Right. He was like, not my will, but your will be done. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it wasn't about what he can do.
Sure.
Not his will, but his Father's will. And I think that's the main thing, is a great leader can be sacrificial for the right mission. And that's the difference. That's what the peace looks like, that you're clear. They can throw anything at me. Right. And let me tell you, some of them have been some of the best looking women you can imagine. Some on TV with the blue check. You can throw anything at me. Right. And I'm not saying I say this in all humility, under God. Right. But whatever they've thrown at me, man, I've been able to say, I don't need it. I don't want it. Right. I don't want it.
Keeping your character intact.
Yes. Well, you have to. Well,
you really touched on one of the things we haven't talked about, and it's one of the what I think is very significant as an accolade, right? One of the things we didn't touch on is you were man of the year, 40 under 40 for San Antonio Business Journal. Yeah.
First
because
African-American.
Because of a lot of the work that you've done. So I just want to, throw that in there and congratulate you on that. And then this year
Spurs,
you were able this year to actually give the keynote at this year. So what was, what was that like? And kind of reflecting back on, I think you've had these amazing experiences where the same path you've taken, right? In retrospect, you've been able to go back and give back. That's and pay back.
I never thought of it like that. Well, at every
level.
At
every level, it's truly amazing.
It's too funny. Wow. I need to really process that. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
At every level, I've been asked to like, can you come back and give back? Like I just left. I did a speech at the university for teachers that are graduating.
Wow, that's amazing.
A big ceremony they had, graduation. Yeah. And I didn't think anything of it. Yeah, my high school. Right. Yeah, I didn't think, wow, interesting, John. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I need to process that. Yeah, that was overwhelming. That was probably one of the bigger, I've done stadiums, 10,000 people, whatever, but when it's that meaningful, when it's because when you win the San Antonio Business Journal, 40 into 40 is one thing. When you win Man of the Year, like the most impactful person male in the city, that catapulted me. I'm in rooms with billionaires now. I'm in conversations with, R.C. Buford, president of Spurs, took me on his wing for some things, and I was able to, do some consulting work with all the major CEOs in our city on criminal justice reform and education reform. So when you get that kind of, again, there's not a degree or a type of paycheck to get in these rooms.
Right.
You can't make enough money. I know billionaires. I don't know them personally, but I've met billionaires. Sure. I know millionaires.
Yeah.
That don't get you in the room.
Right.
I know people that are, we know politicians personally. Sure. People that are on TV, national level.
Right.
That don't get you in the room.
Right.
That don't get you in the room.
Yeah.
All I can say was only God. Because there's no way in my little finite mind that I can say, how did I belong in that room with those kind of people?
Right.
I'm talking CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And they want to know, okay, what do you have to say? And I think there was one time I actually had to address RC in the room, like in the meeting, about something he said, and I was so nervous. And I don't know if you ever see Hitch, the movie Hitch. Yeah. Albert Brenneman, when he's at the podium, sir. Like I was we had to speak up, and I did that, and I lost 30 pounds that day. It was crazy. And I remember it was talking about, a book that they were going to buy and why, the Harvard Review. It's stuff, the stuff I do. I read.
Sure.
The Harvard Review had these negative things to say about this research and da-da-da. It's just stuff I read. This stuff I know. And then that's when I realized, and I said what I said, and he was like, okay, yeah, no doubt. Thank you, Dr. Scott. And then moved on. And I was like, woo, thank you, Lord. Oh, man. He didn't understand. I was like,
sure.
Because what if he was like, well, tell me more about this? You know what? Let's talk offline.
Right.
But he just trusted what I had to say and moved on. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, did this just happen?
Right.
And I remember calling the Spurs, Dr. Jones from the Spurs. And she's like, no, you're okay. RC doesn't want yes, man. Like he won. And that's why. And then she's parenthetically, and that's why we brought you in.
Wow.
That's why we brought you in, because that's your expertise.
Right.
That's, this stuff, disaggregating this data and looking at the nuances of these particular research paradigms.
Sure.
We don't do that. Not here. We gotta
play basketball.
We national basketball,
Right. That's good. So. That's good. And I think it speaks to not only your character, right, but the importance of your integrity. Yeah, even in a place like that, like you said, not willing to compromise and delivering the truth.
I couldn't, because that's the thing is when I told these teachers, people that are going to be teachers, I literally just left that graduation. There's students, I've went to 13 funerals, man, and I've spoken at several. There's students that need us to, they need the fidelity of our mission. They need us to be right. Sure. They need us to be rightfully positioned where we're supposed to be. They need us to be, not chasing the money, but chasing the mission. They need us to be right. And because of that, if I didn't say anything and we would have went that direction because of my being afraid, then there's communities that are going to be negatively impacted.
Wow.
And nothing on them, no indictment, but I have the answer.
Right.
Speak up.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, honing your voice as far as a leader, that's why I love French and Raven, Sources of Power, because it talks about people that are legitimate, leaders or, coercion. You just have, you can force somebody to do something, legitimate power, or expert power, the information, referent to me is the better one because people revere you. That's why they follow you.
Sure.
And then legitimate's title, I'm writing a book. I won't get into it because I haven't copywritten the title yet, but it basically talks about this going beyond the title.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so that's the thing is speak up, hone your voice. It's not about positions and titles. It's about impact.
That's
and
good.
if you're a part of the tapestry that's going to create the impact, speak up.
Right.
Because at that juncture, we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars going to the community, and they're trying to figure out where and how.
Right.
So if you're going to be able to steer the where and how the money can be invested in the community, speak up. The kids and the community need you to speak up.
It's a really, man, this has gone really good. And at every opportunity where I want to pivot, you touch on the next topic. I think it's great, and sort of in closing, I know we've gone a little bit over today. I appreciate your time.
No worries.
But I really wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about something that I'm definitely passionate about, and it's our next generation.
Awesome.
Right. And you have just profound insight into that, obviously, given your positions, not only, in academia, but also with the Community for Life, right? And we're both fathers. We both, I know, have both dealt with the challenge of communicating with teenagers.
Oh man, that's a whole other show, a whole other podcast. Just that.
Yeah,
a whole other podcast.
I recently came across some research by Boston University that just talked about the difference in the generations and how. Baby boomers and so some of them are older generations were focused more on provision and purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
During those time frames, and you're talking about going through the Great Depression and things like those, right? Those things, the Great Wars, and how our current generations, whether it's XYZ or millennials or whatever they're calling the next generations, they're more focused on purpose, on influence, right? And they try to align, not only where they seek for employment, but organizations that they align themselves with. Right. And as many of our younger generations seek to be sort of social media influencers,
right.
What have you seen in your profession or in your time? What's one challenge you've experienced in sort of relating with younger generations?
Yeah, I would say just that, being conversant with how they process information.
Okay.
You got to remember, so when we were coming up, around the same age, we had commercials. We had 7 minutes of programming, 2-minute commercials. 7 minutes of programming, 2-minute commercials. So our brains were socialized like that. Now, students don't have any commercials. I mean, you got YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you know what I mean?
Sure.
TikTok. Things are done in TikTok. You're done in like 15, 30 seconds.
Sure.
And so, having to now understand how people process information because it's so quickly and it's overload.
Right.
And also being able to make the information pithy and concise so it's digestible to this next generation. Because again, I work part-time with the students. Things I say, and if I'm trying to give long speeches, it's not gonna resonate. They're gonna check out. So you have to be able to package your mission or whatever aphorisms, whatever you want to do. You want to package it in and make it palatable for that next generation. Because I think what we do is we take this. Well, I'm in charge, or I've already arrived. Personality.
Yeah, very authoritarian.
Yeah, very authoritarian. It's not about you, it's about legacy. Now we're building legacy. We're not talking about you and what you have. I just posted recently, and it was a message, man, that was given the other day at church. I'm not living for me anymore, man. It's about legacy. It's about, how can I make sure, like Pastor Keith, you always say, success is measured in succession, where your kids, grandkids feel the impact that you're making. So now I'm thinking, how am I able to communicate effectively to this next generation so that we can continue building capacity and replicating ourselves in others, as Mr. Bagel and Pastor Keith did in us, and then in me, and then they can carry it on in perpetuity so that their kids, grandkids will feel the impact, and then that's when you see the real systemic yet community-based change.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Well, we definitely are grateful and appreciative, not only for your willingness to talk to us today, but really in educating us in so many ways, and just hearing about your walk in our wilderness. I'm sure, especially in the last couple of years, you've learned a lot, not only about yourself, but about your walk in the wilderness, as you've already shared. But give our listeners sort of, what is the one thing, as we get ready to close here, what's the one thing you wish you would have known 10 to 15 years ago that you feel would have made you a better leader today?
Find a mentor immediately. Stay with that mentor, right? Everybody, here's the thing. There's a saying that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. What I've seen is sometimes you can have a mentor and then you get where they are or near them and then they become competitors. I've seen that. And so what happens when your mentor is now your competitor?
Wow.
And now they treat you like competition.
Wow.
They don't want to mentor you. So I've had that. I've had people that I trusted, I had them as mentors, and now they started competing with me. And now there's a disdain there. So just really, really, be careful on who you choose as a real and say is your mentor.
Sure.
Because this person would really walk you through the wilderness and throughout, and then the next wilderness and throughout if possible. That's one. So don't go it alone. Find a great mentor and stay with them.
Sure.
Okay. 2, failure ain't final. Failure is not final.
Failure is not final.
Failure is not final. I have failed so many times. I think I got that from Tony Robbins, but I failed so many times, personally, and spiritually, professionally, but it's not final. Keep walking, keep moving. Like I said, if you got to even crawl in the wilderness, crawl out of it, however you got to get there, keep moving. Don't stop. Right? There's an emotional part of motion, right? If you're moving, there's emotions in that.
That's good.
Right? If you feel down, that's what I tell people. If you feel down and out, and I think I heard this from Steve Harvey, he says, give thanks, right? And that'll help you, get over your being down and out. But I also say, get moving.
Right.
Do something. Find, if you're down and out about something, go work on your mission. And there's motion, there's emotions in motion.
Yeah, that's
right
good.
When you start moving. And then I think the last and final thing is what is your contribution? Why? Your why? What's going to be your contribution? And as far as legacy, when people say your name, what are they going to remember? Oh man, he made the most money. Oh man, he had the best cars and nice trips. And then, oh man, he had the baddest women around him. Right? Is that what you want people to remember you by? When you're gone.
Right.
And so that's why I write. And I tell people, write books, because even after you're gone in perpetuity, people can read your books and be mentored by you, even in your death.
Man,
they can still be mentored by you.
Sure, that's
right.
Good. Yeah.
So, what do you want to be remembered by? When they say your name, what comes up? That's your legacy. And so right now, I'm about legacy building. And then also making an impact. A part of that legacy is your impact, your contribution. Right. In what arena do you want to make the most impact? So hopefully it's intergenerational, and it's international at times, but it's ultimately it's just going to be an amazing impact.
Yeah. Well, again, Dr. Scott, that's amazing. I really appreciate you sharing your sage advice with not only myself, but with our listeners. If somebody wants to learn more about you, maybe wants to see if their mission might be aligned with yours, where can they learn more about you? Are you on social media? Do you have a website?
Absolutely. Dr. Lawrence Scott, drlawrencescott.com is the website. We have most of our research there. So I've done research with a lot of impactful academicians in the field, a lot of different topics. And then Dr. L. Scott, Instagram, and you can find me on, Twitter and Facebook, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing is, and I don't, I have, thankfully I have managers and agents. So they intercept a lot of the stuff, handle the stuff. But, but there's times where, we'll get something. Man, I've had people ask me to pray for them. I've never met to pray for them. Send them a video. I have somebody dying. Can you pray for them?
Wow.
That kind of stuff. And I was just a teacher. I was just a guidance counselor. I was just a professor.
Yeah.
But you're getting people, you're impacting people. They see you on TV and they're thanking you.
Right.
I had somebody thank me and said, about the race stuff. And they're like, look, I voted for this particular person. I traditionally don't listen to blah, 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 blah. But your message of building bridges resonated with me. Your message of unity. And what they don't know is that's godly. It's just God. It's just Beatitudes, right? Matthew, and so blessed are the peacemakers. That's all it is. and that's the thing is that's my contribution. Now, it might not be packaged like a preacher, might not have scriptures with it, but it's an action.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, well, again, we greatly thank you and appreciate your time and you sharing your walk with us today. Again, here at Walking in the Wilderness Leadership Podcast, we created this platform for leaders to share about their purpose, about their walk and what their experience and journey has been like. And if you either want to get involved or you just appreciate and want to hear more, feel free to like and subscribe to this, and also be on the lookout for more interviews with more leaders. Again, Dr. Scott, we thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, John. Appreciate it.